Hey everybody, this is our online part of our class this week, and I am going to be giving you an assignment using the text Lasers in the Jungle. And that assignment is going to be centered around paraphrasing. And paraphrasing is a form of note-taking and a form of writing. So we're going to get into what paraphrasing is on this next slide. Okay, so paraphrasing is a form of translation. So many of you have speak more than one language. Maybe English is your first language and you're learning another language, or maybe another language is your first language and you're learning English, or you're learning other things as well as English. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about how you're learning a different language and what you have to do in your brain to understand the new language, right? I'm sure you are translating things to yourself all the time. I also want you to think about how you would be if you were hired to be a translator. So if you were a translator between one person who spoke, Spanish, and another person who only spoke English, and you knew both, you could do the translation for those people if they wanted to communicate with each other. So if the Spanish speaker said to the English speaker, wanted to say to them, go do the dishes, they'd say it to you, and then you would say it in English back to the English speaker. So when you're doing that, you are using the exact idea that is communicated to you to communicate to the other person. So for example, if the Spanish speaker said to you, go do the dishes, and you were supposed to translate that to the English speaker, that's what you would do. You would say, go do the dishes. You wouldn't say, oh my goodness, this is the worst chore ever. I feel so sorry for you that you have to, but they're telling you to just go do the dishes, and that's just awful. You don't deserve that. That's not how you translate. What you do is you translate exactly what the person says to the other person. You don't bring in any of your opinion or what you think. You are just the vehicle of like one language going through you and coming out another language so the other person can understand it. And that is exactly how paraphrasing works. Because most academic texts have academic language in it. It's very formal language. The vocabulary is often very sophisticated. It is not how we talk at all. And that's why it's called academic language, because it's written that way. So when you're paraphrasing, you're going to do the translation from the academic language that's more formal to a more informal use of language that you would use when you talk. So you're going to keep the ideas the same, but you're going to translate from academic words to informal words. Okay? So I have it written here, and you can read that if you feel like that's a little bit more succinct. Oh my gosh, a little more clear for you. Anyway, you can also look at the moo, right? This cow says moo, and then this cow says, I just said that, use your own words. Because that's what teachers always say when they want you to paraphrase is use your own words, right? So I hope that gives you a clear picture of what paraphrasing is. All right, so we're going on to the next thing. So we're going to paraphrase part of Lasers in the Jungle, and that was your assignment that you were supposed to have read and annotated for purpose on Monday night or on whatever day. So this is an assignment that's already done, and so we're not going to spend any more time with that. You should have read this. Done. Okay? And so step 2 is to ask yourself, do I understand this text? And if you do, fantastic. Great, you understand it. If you don't really understand it, well, then you have to do some work in order to understand it. Now, there's this worksheet that may look familiar to you right here. And this worksheet is the main idea major support worksheet. And it gives you a process for breaking down articles. All right, so it's going to ask you what the topic of the essay is, and you'll write it there. And then it says, what is the controlling idea? The single most important thing that the author wants you to know. And then you'd write that there. And then you would compose a thesis statement or a main idea statement, right? And then you tell, if it is stated, you're going to tell where it's stated. And then, since you've already annotated for purpose, you can list the major support here. Because once you go through and annotate for purpose, then you can see where the shifts are from one subject to the next subject. So that's the reason why you annotate for purpose, is that you have those little like summaries in the margin telling what each paragraph is for. And then you can see where there's a shift. So for example, if I was talking about getting my hair cut, I might say, when I get my hair cut, I always get my hair washed in a sink that has part of the sink is cut away so my head can fit into the sink really easily. And then if I decided to talk about something different, like my hairdresser. My hairdresser is really nice and she's a great storyteller. I'm still talking about going to get my hair cut, but it's shifted from one subject to the next. And so that's what you pay attention to with this worksheet. This worksheet, you list all the major support based on chunking the paragraphs together that fit together. And then when it shifts to another topic, you put another thing down. Okay? This will just help you organize your thoughts. That's all. It's just going to help you organize your thoughts. It's going to help you understand the text better. And so if you already understand it, you don't have to go through this because this was not assigned for this assignment. This is just there. It's in the important documents, or maybe it's in close reading. You can check either one of those folders on D2L and you can print one if you feel like that is something that would be helpful. But you do need to understand the text in order to paraphrase. Okay, so then we go on to step 3, which is think. And that sounds super easy, right? Think. But what you're going to do is you're going to put away your notes, put away the article, and maybe even take a break, but make sure to set your timer, because if you don't set your timer, you'll go and get busy and never come back to your assignment. So make sure that you set your timer for 10 minutes, take a break, let things solidify in your head, and what you're thinking about is the part of the article or whatever it is that you need to paraphrase and what that means. Okay, so you're going to go ahead, think for 10 minutes. And then you're going to come back for step 4, which is writing your paraphrase. You're not going to look back at your notes or the article. Keep them put away. Just get out a blank piece of paper and do your best to remember what the article said and just write your paraphrase down. You're not looking at the text at all, so you won't be tempted to copy. Okay? So that's a huge trick. Write your paraphrase. And then once you're done writing, then we go on to step 5, which is compare and revise. So what you're going to do is you're going to take out your notes, take out the article, have your paraphrase there, and you're going to compare the texts. You're going to ask yourself these questions. Did you include all of the major points? Because all the major details, all the major support, however you say it, all the major details have to be in your paraphrase. Okay? Did you include something incorrectly? Like, did you remember something wrong? Because if you did, that also needs to be corrected. And lastly, did you accidentally use any of the author's words? It happens because sometimes that's what you memorize when you're reading it. And if you memorize that part and you put it in your paraphrase, then you're in trouble because that's plagiarism. Now, you can absolutely quote the text if the author says something and it's a little bit, it's not the whole entire paragraph, but it's just like a line or two that is just really powerful that you want to include. Absolutely, you can do that, but you need to quote it then. Then it needs to be a quotation, because you can't take the author's words and just write them down. Even if you've memorized it and you're not looking at it, there's still the author's words, and you still have to quote it, or you have to change it so it's a paraphrase. Okay? Also, revise then. So then if you have done things like used the author's real words, then you have to revise. You either have to get it quoted or you have to paraphrase it. Okay? So correct all of your mistakes, and then you need to decide whether you are going to quote or not. Okay? Because that's important to distinguish. All right, so then after you're done with step 5, the next step is important and often forgotten, and that is you need to give credit to the author. You need to cite your source. There are 2 ways to do that. You can either use a parenthetical citation or an in-text citation. The parenthetical just means that you put a parentheses, the last name of the author, and the name of the text that you are paraphrasing in, and then another parentheses. That's a parenthetical. So right there on number 1, I give you an example. Number 2 is in-text citation. This is when you put the author's name right in your paraphrase. So this one says, according to Meg Hatton, in the text paraphrasing, snow days are not just free days where you can play video games all day. Okay, so my name is in it. I've been cited. Now you're safe. So you have to give credit to the authors and the text. All right, here's what your assignment is. You are going to go back to Lasers in the Jungle. You are going to practice paraphrasing, but first you have to find the explanation of LIDAR in the article. They define it. You need to find the definition in the article. Then you're going to follow the steps 1 through 5 or 6. I think there's 6 actually. 1 through 6. And you're going to write a paraphrased definition of LIDAR. This should be typed, double-spaced, and you should spell and grammar check it. Okay? Once you're done, you're going to upload your paraphrased definition of LIDAR to the assignment folder on D2L. Okay? That's what your assignment is. If you have questions, please ask them. You can add them right to the bottom of your paraphrase. Make sure to leave a space and to label it. So you should space it like definition of LIDAR and then questions. And let me know how it goes. And that's it. So that is your assignment. Good luck, and let me know if you need help.